When we talk about World War II, we usually hear about generals, soldiers, tanks, and battles. But behind all that, there was another war being fought. A quieter one, a weirder one. A war of lipstick, deception, fashion, and courage, led by women. Today, we're diving into 10 unbelievable and often forgotten stories about the strange, heroic, and sometimes downright bizarre roles women played in World War II. Grab your coffee, or maybe your victory red lipstick, because this is going to get fascinating. 1. The Lipstick Wars. Beauty as a weapon. During the Blitz, bombs were falling from the sky, cities were burning, and yet the British government urged women to wear lipstick. Yes, lipstick. It wasn't vanity, it was strategy. The Ministry of Information told women that beauty is your duty. Makeup became a psychological weapon. It said, we're still here, we still care, we're still human. Red lipstick, especially Victory Red by Elizabeth Arden, became a symbol of defiance. Hitler hated lipstick, which made it even more popular among Allied women. And factories producing war goods also mass-produced beauty supplies because morale was as vital as munitions. Weird fact, some women wore lipstick to work in bomb factories, their bright lips shining through layers of dust and smoke, a small act of rebellion against despair. 2. The Ghost Army's Invisible Women. We've all heard of the Ghost Army, the US unit that used inflatable tanks, sound effects, and fake radio chatter to trick the Nazis. But few realize that some of the masterminds behind those illusions were women. Female artists from the Women's Army Corps helped design fake landscapes, camouflage, and dummy tanks that looked real from the air. They painted shadows and created optical illusions so convincing that entire German divisions were fooled. These women weren't on the front lines, but their paintbrushes won battles. They literally designed deception. Weird twist, some of their camouflage techniques later inspired post-war fashion prints, blending art, war, and style in one surreal loop. 3. Women as human crash test pilots. Before new aircraft were handed to male combat pilots, they had to be tested. And who did that? Women. The Women Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPS, flew experimental and sometimes faulty planes, ones known for engine failures and fatal crashes. They ferried bombers across the country, towed targets for live ammunition practice, and even tested rockets. They wore no medals, they weren't technically part of the military, and when they died, their bodies weren't brought home with honors. Their families had to pay for it themselves. Weird twist. Over 1,000 women served as WASPs, yet their service was classified for decades. They were literal crash dummies for America's most dangerous war machines. 4. The Night Witches, silent death from the sky. They were called the Night Witches, the all-female Soviet bombing regiment that terrified the Nazis. Flying old wooden biplanes, these women cut their engines mid-air and glided silently before dropping bombs. The Germans were so spooked they believed these women were supernatural, witches who rode the wind. Each plane could only carry 2 bombs. They'd have to fly multiple missions per night. They used rulers and stopwatches instead of radar. And yet, they completed over 30,000 missions. Their uniforms? Hand-me-downs from men, too big and freezing cold. Their planes? So flammable that one tracer bullet could set them ablaze. Weird twist. Their punishment for being caught wasn't death, it was humiliation. Nazis refused to believe they were women doing this. 5. The secret codebreakers in cardigans. In a quiet English estate called Bletchley Park, some of the brightest minds of the war cracked the Enigma code, and most of them were women. Nearly 3 out of 4 code breakers were female. They weren't just typists, they were linguists, mathematicians, and puzzle-solving prodigies. Their recruitment method? Newspaper crossword contests. Yes, MI5 literally found geniuses through crossword puzzles. They intercepted Nazi messages, decoded them, and passed them on to commanders who had no idea who was behind the curtain. Weird twist. They were sworn to lifelong secrecy. Many went to their graves, never revealing their role in defeating Hitler. 6. Fashion as a weapon. Fashion magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar didn't just inspire style, they hid secrets. Coded colors, patterns, and dress designs carried subtle signals to resistance movements in Nazi-occupied Europe. French designers sketched dresses that secretly contained messages for underground allies, hidden in the stitching patterns. Meanwhile, in neutral countries, fashion shows acted as cover for intelligence exchanges. And then there's Coco Chanel, a woman whose legacy is complicated. She was a fashion icon, but also an alleged spy who tried to use her position to gain favor with German officers. Weird twist. Fashion, in wartime, wasn't just about looking good. It was about survival, seduction, and subversion. 7. The woman behind the corpse. Operation Mincemeat, one of the most successful deception missions in history. The British used a corpse dressed as an officer to plant false invasion plans and fool the Nazis. But the mission might have failed, if not for one woman. Jean Leslie, a young MI5 clerk, volunteered her photo to play the corpse's girlfriend. Her smiling picture, along with fake love letters and receipts, made the story of Major William Martin seem real. The Germans found the body, believed every word, and redirected their troops away from Sicily, saving tens of thousands of lives. Weird twist. Her photo, just one small personal gesture, helped deceive Hitler himself. 8. Housewives who made explosives. While men were at war, factories turned to housewives. In Britain, women worked with chemicals like TNT and cordite, hand-packing explosives for bombs. They were nicknamed Canary Girls because the chemicals turned their skin bright yellow. They risked poisoning, infertility, and explosions every day, yet they did it proudly. One factory explosion in 1917 killed hundreds of women, and by World War II, many of their daughters were back doing the same work. Weird twist. Some of these women joked that they glowed in the dark, quite literally, from the chemicals in their bodies. 9. Spies of seduction. Some women used charm as their weapon. The British Special Operations Executive trained female spies to infiltrate occupied Europe, to gather intelligence, recruit resistance, and yes, sometimes seduce enemy officers. One of the most famous was Noor Inayat Khan, a gentle, soft-spoken musician and pacifist. She became a master radio operator in Nazi-occupied France. Her cover relied on her ability to blend in, using conversation, culture, and emotion as tools of survival. Even when captured, she refused to betray her comrades. She was executed in Dachau, reportedly whispering the word liberté, freedom, as her last act of defiance. Weird twist. Her charm and music, not her gun, made her one of the deadliest spies of the war. 10. Forgotten after victory. When the war ended, women were told to go home, to return to kitchens, to domestic life, to silence. Many who worked in top-secret operations couldn't tell their families what they had done, not for a year, not for decades. Their files were locked away, their medals delayed or denied. The world remembered Churchill and Eisenhower, but not the women who fed them the intelligence that won their victories. Some only received recognition in the 1990s, half a century later. Their stories remind us that history often forgets its quiet heroes. Weird twist. When the truth finally came out, many of these women were already gone. They didn't want fame. They just wanted people to know they were there. War makes people do strange things. But for women, World War II was more than just strange. It was transformative. They were spies, pilots, chemists, illusionists, and heroes who worked in the shadows. They fought not just for victory, but for recognition, for dignity, and for a world that refused to see their worth. And maybe, just maybe, that's the weirdest part of all.